As we face these very daunting scenarios, the possibility of massive radiation contamination throughout the world, as we face near-term extinction, these are issues of death. And people just do not want to talk about that, certainly in the culture of industrialized civilization. And it really merits a time of grieving, a time of looking at what's really important and how are we going to live in the face of all of this.
Neither my children nor my grandchildren at this stage have reached the stage at which they're ready to talk about this and to really come to grips with it themselves. So I'm trying to get ready so that when they are, I've got the answers. Not the answers to the problems, but the answers to the process that I can help them go through to help them come to grips with this. It takes a long time to understand what's happening, and it's going to be a lifelong journey for me for the rest of my life to help them be ready to face what they're going to face.
Hi, welcome to Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson. I'm on Bowen Island on the west coast of British Columbia, Canada, with two guests, both from here in the United States. I'm with Dave Pollard, who is the proprietor, I guess I would say, of the website How to Save the World. And visiting from Colorado is Carolyn Baker, whose website is Speaking Truth to Power, who's an author of a number of books on navigating the coming chaos is one, for example, a guide to the inner transition. Let me start by saying you both have been watching what's going on deeply in the world, often what's below the mainstream media radar, how things are crumbling perhaps, how things are collapsing. And I wanted to ask you both kind of how you came to that and what you're seeing going on that they aren't telling us. I'll start with you, Carolyn. What do you picture here?
Well, I've been talking about this all morning in my workshop for Bowen in Transition here on the island. Yeah, there are two things that are concerning me right now more than anything else that I think are really dire, and that is catastrophic climate change and the rapidity with which that is unfolding and affecting our planet, producing, as many scientists are increasingly mentioning, the possibility of near-term extinction, in which by mid-century there may be few habitable places on the planet. There's that, and then we're also dealing with the immediate Fukushima crisis and the radiation that has been dispelled from that, and the imminent removal of fuel rods from reactor 4, which is going to be a very daunting procedure that could result in a number of deaths throughout the region, the Asian region, and reach the United States as well.
And what I want to add is that you've been watching. I sort of think of your historical hat that you wear. You have a daily digest where you're giving us links to headlines that included climate, but also the economy, also governments going down. I mean, so what you've named as the collapse of industrial civilization. But I want to, it's like bigger picture than just the two immediate pieces. Dave, you have been paying attention to systems, large complex systems on the planet for a long, long time. Starting with your blog, you know, How to Save the World, but you're coming to a different point of view on that. Give us what you're seeing.
Yeah, basically, in addition to what Carolyn was describing, what I am seeing now is that we are facing endgames in three large systems: the economic system, the energy system, and the ecological system, as Carolyn has described. And any one of them, the complex system, the feedback loops in those systems could lead us to civilizational collapse. So I'm now looking at how can we respond to, how can we adapt to these various collapse scenarios, regardless of which system goes down first.
And we aren't, I mean, we're in huge uncertainty about all this, right?
Yes.
I mean, Fukushima, drop one of those rods and we're, who knows, and the three systems you're talking about, all of which, I mean, they're like wild cards together.
They are, and they're all interrelated to some extent as well, just to add further complexity to it.
So we can't figure, I mean, you can't figure out a scenario, I mean, what I'm guessing from you, you can't figure out a scenario, well, if the economy goes down, we'll do this. I'm guessing that most people that we are related to kind of don't want to hear that. Is that sort of your experience with people in the broader culture, I should say, kind of just don't want to? What's your sense of people's response to this news, or are they avoiding it?
I don't know if they don't want to hear it or if they're just not ready yet to hear it. I think most people are just too busy, too preoccupied with the needs of the moment and dealing with the more day-to-day crises that they're dealing with, to be ready enough and to have had enough time to study what's going on, to actually become aware of, and therefore to start to plan how they're going to cope with these crises when they occur.
Yeah, but you don't know how it's going to hit. You know, it's like, is it going to be a hurricane? Is it going to be radiation?
Right.
I mean, I can imagine that makes it tougher.
We've got to be ready for it all.
How do you do that?
Well, I think really I believe that many people don't want to hear because it's too frightening. And one of the things that we have a great deal of difficulty with in this culture is dealing with death. And so as we face these very daunting scenarios, the possibility of massive radiation contamination throughout the world, as we face near-term extinction, these are issues of death. And people just do not want to talk about that, certainly in the culture of industrialized civilization. It's a dying of the ego as well as the loss of many of the things to which we become extremely familiar. And it really merits a time of grieving, a time of looking at what's really important and how are we going to live in the face of all of this.
Say more. I mean, both of you, it's like, yeah, thank you for that piece, because it seems to me a lot of the things that this culture doesn't want to look at, the stuff in the shadow, the emotions, are going to, I mean, you can't face the loss of, say, the lifestyle you're used to, or there's not a future life for your children or your grandchildren. I mean, it's like, when you look that square in the eye, there's got to be stuff that we don't tend to talk about in our culture. Right. I mean, you have children, you have grandchildren. No, children.
Both. I have both. Yeah.
Right. What do you know? How do you look at how to respond to this, with or without your kids involved in the picture?
I guess what I'm trying to do right now is be prepared to respond when they're ready to deal with it. Neither my children nor my grandchildren at this stage have reached the stage at which they're ready to talk about this and to really come to grips with it themselves. So I'm trying to get ready so that when they are, I've got the answers. Not the answers to the problems, but the answers to the process that I can help them go through to help them come to grips with this, deal with it, help them with, in the case of my children, with their children's preparation for all of this. And it's a journey. It takes a long time to understand what's happening, and it's going to be a lifelong journey for me for the rest of my life to help them be ready to face what they're going to face.
You know, it seems to me that the first thing that comes up for many of us in this culture when you hear bad news is surely somebody's figured out how to fix this. You know, whether it's peak oil or we're running out of aluminum, we'll substitute something else, let's go frack everything and change, replace the petroleum. And what kind of response do you give to somebody that's still hoping that we can turn this around? Because I think a lot of the green or environmental movement or whatever, sustainability movement, is about, well, let's see, we can go to hybrid cars, we can, the list is long. What do you do there?
Well, I think, I think it's important to tell the truth. My website is called Speaking Truth to Power. I think it's very important to tell the truth and tell it compassionately, but the truth needs to be told. And the truth is that technology is not going to fix everything. We have not been told the full truth about a lot of these issues. We haven't been told the full truth about climate change. We haven't been told the full truth about Fukushima. And I think it's time to speak that truth and let people know that there are really two things that we can and must do right now, and that is to explore the inner planes in terms of our emotions, how this is affecting us emotionally, finding meaning and purpose in our lives, and also building community with each other so that we're not going through this alone. Those are the two things that I think are really important.
What your emphasis is on the fact what we can change. Is our own responses to that. And I think that's what you've been writing lately as well, is how do you...
Right. What can we do to learn some of the essential skills that we will need to live in a world without a stable climate, for example? What are the skills involved in building community and living with people who we may have to learn to love even though we don't like them very much. And that's kind of a lost art. And also just in the case of the people that I meet who aren't yet ready, is to try to figure out how to live an exemplary and joyful life. So that instead of telling them what they're not yet ready to hear, you can model the kind of behavior and learning that you have internalized, so that when they are ready, they'll say, okay, that makes sense. That's a way in which we can respond to this when they're ready to hear that news.
I'm just thinking about to what Carolyn was saying earlier about death. I mean, in a sense, we're facing deaths of different kind, not necessarily just literal body deaths, but deaths of, I'm thinking of like when the Soviet Union collapsed, deaths of jobs and identities and family structures, and I mean all kinds of things that are going to dissolve and change form. And that if we treated each other as if we were dying, or as if we knew we had a terminal sentence, even though we don't, I mean we all do ultimately, but...
Well, I just recently posted an article on my website, and it's being posted in other places as well, on the Earth community and hospice. And I see us as needing to mentally and emotionally put ourselves in an attitude of hospice, that we really don't have that much time, and that it really is important to live in a way that enhances not only our own quality of life, but in a way that supports others. And so I'm suggesting that people really begin to value each day as possibly their last, that they begin to really, really build relationships with other people. There are amends that need to be made. There's a time of reflection that people go through in hospice where they're looking at what was valuable in my life, what did I do well, where were there places that I may have failed myself and other people, and there are restitutions perhaps that need to be made. And a time quality time in nature. I think this is really exceedingly important, that we spend as much time in nature as possible and really savor it, taste it, smell it, feel it, touch it, commune with it, listen to it, speak to it as we would speak to another being, and really value this time that we have. And not spend a lot of time about, talking about what mistakes did we make, but rather what can we learn from this? And begin to serve in ways that we've not served before. How can I really help you? How can I be present with you in this? How can we help each other?
Part of what we've been talking about this morning has been one of the first steps in doing that is to let go. Let go the belief that there are going to be ways to fix this, that something is going to, human ingenuity or collective consciousness is going to be raised to the point that this is going to be solved. And also letting go of the illusion of control.
Oh.
We've believed for decades in our industrial civilization that, that we are in control of our future and the planet's future. And what we're starting to learn now is that we're not in control, that there are things happening that we not only are unaware of, but are unable to change. And giving up that control, it takes an enormous emotional shift. And Carolyn has been very helpful during the session today in helping us begin to make that shift.
Thank you. And I think as Dave is talking about this, one huge example is catastrophic climate change, which now really has a life of its own. So that even if we stopped tomorrow doing everything that's causing global warming, because of the self-reinforcing feedback loops that just seem to increase and intensify, we're not able to reverse it. We would like to think we are, but it probably is unstoppable at this point. And so it's out of our control.
And I think you have mentioned that even if we had, that even governments got it, if they just got it, right, we still would either muck it up unintentionally or not be able to address it quickly enough. It's beyond.
Well, and it's also because it's a complex system. When we intervene in it, we can't depend upon the results being what we hope they will be. So the groups now that are talking about geoengineering, where they're going to throw aluminum particles up into the atmosphere to reverse climate change, they really have no idea of all of the variables that are involved in the very subtle balancing of our atmosphere, and therefore what the results could be of that. It could be anywhere from a worsening of that situation to the rapid precipitation of another ice age. We don't know, and we have to get beyond the arrogance of believing that we know enough to be able to control our future destiny.
You're talking about a huge change, from the industrial model, really. I hear a reversal. It's like, we can control it, we're the masters of our destiny and our planet and so on, to a kind of vulnerability.
Well, yeah, and I don't think we're going to intellectually make that leap. We're not going to will it, probably. We're not likely to wake up some morning and say, I think I need to change my attitude now. I think that we'll be compelled by circumstances to surrender that control and open to that kind of vulnerability.
Well, you make me think of Hurricane Sandy or Hurricane Katrina. It's like you have to just deal with the crisis, which can both pull us together and also tear a lot apart.
Yep.
Hopefully, pull together. What do we say to the young people? Are we just doomers? That's part of what I hear, that accusation is like, well, if we just tell them the tipping point has been reached, the dangers are even stronger, like Fukushima. I can't imagine saying to young people, sorry, you don't have a future.
What I've started to do is to think beyond this transition. We're going to have a couple of centuries, perhaps more, of very turbulent times. But I think there is light at the end of that eventually we will, probably with a much smaller human population, reach the stage at which we will rediscover how to live in a culture that is sustainable. We will learn some of those lessons from the past. And the way I respond to real doomers who say, well, if it's really that bad, it's, we might as well just end it all now, is to start to tell some stories about what life will be like or could be like 2 centuries or 10 centuries into the future, and look at this as just being a difficult journey to get to that future, and have my children think about not just their children's future, but 7 generations or 10 generations into the future, where we will have emerged from this and hopefully learned the lessons from it and helped to create, to be part of a world that is better than the one in which we're living today, even though for a lot of us we can't even imagine that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I do believe that there's going to be a large die-off of species. But I also believe that there are going to be pockets of endurance, places where there will be people who survive in different ways, and that those stories that Dave is talking about are extremely important because we don't know who's going to survive. And even if a person doesn't survive, to have that story, to be living with that story, you know, I'm a storyteller. And one of the things we've been doing this morning in the workshop is I've been telling a story and we've been working with it. And every time I do this and I see people working with stories, I see transformation going on. I see people shifting and going deeper within themselves and with each other. And there's something very meaningful and purposeful and juicy in that process that I think is extremely valuable. And so one of the things that we can tell our kids is a lot of stories about everything, but certainly to inspire them with the sense of how life could be and what is possible.
It would be fun to work with you on a...
I was going to say, that's juicy. It's
on a
like I think
project.
about both of you.
Yeah.
It's like, what, you know, fragments or little pieces to because it feels to me like there are stories that want to emerge.
Absolutely.
They both have pieces from the past, stories that other cultures have given us, actually from many cultures that have been here forever,
Yes.
who see themselves as being here from the beginnings,
Right.
before the beginnings. And it also occurs to me that can give us both meaning, help us get meaning with all of the chaos or the uncertainty of what may be happening, and meaning as the losses deepen. We need those.
Yes.
I find myself thinking that the creative process, whatever we want to call it, so loves playing on this planet and has loved playing and trying things out on this planet, all kinds of conditions, that for me that's the thread of light that carries on for me, and thinking about those stories.
Yeah.
And so many of our future state stories now are dystopias.
Yes.
It would be fun to work on a utopian story, not utopian in the sense of hopelessly optimistic,
Right.
but in terms of what the future world could be like if we learn and work through this period of struggle
Right.
Effectively, how we can emerge from the other side, or our descendants can emerge from the other side in a better world. And I think, I learned in business that those future state stories can be extremely powerful in not only giving people the resolve to work towards challenging goals, but also giving them a little bit of vision and hope
Absolutely.
to work towards.
Yeah.
Although I'm hesitant to use that word hope, because Derek Jensen
Yes,
says we have to get beyond
And
hope.
I'm the same way. I say the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, because hope really denies us agency. But I'm
Right.
real good with the words inspiration and vision. I think those are really important words.
We need that. We need, I mean, that's part of what gives us meaning in our lives. It's like a vision of where we're, and the current culture gives us a vision of a successful life and comfortable and wealth and economic kind of stuff. And so to find that there are other ways of living that may be richer, just in different dimensions, say in relationship.
Yeah.
Well, I want to toss a little piece into the pot for one of those future stories, which has to do with humans and their relationship to the natural community, because I see that the natural world community is part of what we've lost along the way. And so in my little piece for that future revision, we again are able, we have refound that ability to truly hear what the animals, the places, the winds are saying.
Yes.
And that not metaphorically. I mean it
Right.
quite literally.
Yes.
It's just part of why I think that some of the indigenous tribes of people that are still extant have a lot to give to us if we, if they can make it through to
Absolutely.
the next phase.
Right.
What else is on your mind here that you want to just make sure we share?
Well, I'd like to share a little bit about my new book, which is Collapsing Consciously, Transformative Truths for Turbulent Times. When I submitted this to the publisher, they said this book is too long. It had 17 essays and 365 daily reflections on responding to our predicament. And so what they asked me to do was They wanted to publish the 17 essays and then have me pull out 52 reflections weekly on this topic. And then they decided to put the other 313 reflections in an ebook.
Oh.
So as of November 19th, hard copy will be available as it is here, and so will the ebook. And these are really, this is a manual for getting us through, for inspiring us, for giving us vision as we go through these turbulent times. So I wanted to mention the book,
Great.
and I hope that people will read it.
Thank you. I will add that your other books, Navigating the Chaos and Sacred Demise, are chock full of the kind of wisdom and tools. This is not just head stuff. This is really a lot about dealing with the emotions,
Absolutely.
the feelings that people have stirring, that
Absolutely.
they have to be going on inside.
Yes.
So
yes.
a
You are toolkit for that.
You're a gift to us in that regard.
Thank you.
And I will add that, Dave, your essays, including the recent one, are wonderful. How do I say this? Fill in cracks on how did we get here, and are there other ways to go about that? I can see why you'd be excited to envision, a couple. Yeah.
Right.
I'm hoping I'll encourage you to do that.
I'm also really intrigued about what's happening now with what's being called the sharing economy.
The sharing
economy, which is kind of a pragmatic adaptation of the ideas of the gift economy that's been kicking around for a number of years. And this is actually happening. There are whole parts of our economy now, whole parts of our society that have, for various reasons, given up on the industrial growth economy and that model, largely because many of the participants simply can't afford to participate in it anymore. And what's going on in a lot of communities now in the sharing economy, where there's trade and there's tool sharing going on, operations, even operations like Airbnb, where people who have surplus are able to share it with people who have needs and therefore meet some of their requirements. A lot of interesting stuff going on in that area, and Charles Eisenstein, again, his book on the sacred economics is a good starting point for anybody who wants to learn about the sharing economy. But find out what's going on in your own community as well, because just about every community that I have been involved with has activities going on in this particular area now.
It's really exciting how the sharing stuff is just
yeah. And it's upbeat, it's positive.
Of course it is, and you get to share.
And it's good for that.
And it's amazing to me that some of the stories that come back from that, of people trusting other people to lend their car, on a regular basis, or other things that we don't need to own. All of us don't need to own all of it.
Exactly.
We've got plenty to share. There's plenty to go around.
And if the economy goes, even before the ecology goes, before the climate change hits, this will be really useful preparation for that as well.
Great. Thank you both. Thank you for all you're doing. Thank you for underscoring, the what's going on and what we do forward. And I'll tell you, folks, when they finish producing some of those stories, we'll be back to you with those. You're watching Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson. I'm with Dave Pollard, Carolyn Baker. Thanks for being with me.
Thank you.
Till next time.